The death toll in the collapsed multi-story building in George, Western Cape, has risen to 14, with some 39 people still unaccounted for. Officials say the primary concern currently is the careful recovery of those who are still trapped underneath the rubble, while investigations are ongoing. Labour Minister Thulas Nxesi has said the collapse of the building serves as a sobering reminder of the critical importance of prioritising safety in the workplace. And to give us more insight into the duties of various role players in the construction process is Gerhard, Potgieter, branch manager for construction dealing with health and safety compliance at Comprac Gauteng. Thank you so much, Gerhard, for joining us. It is an absolute privilege to have you this morning.
Welcome.
So firstly, let's talk about what the law says when it comes to safety practices in the construction industry.
Well, health and safety in the construction industry is primarily governed by the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Then with the regulations that's attached to it, the construction regulations, goes into a bit of more specifics into the point by point what is required in the various situations. The construction regulations also put various responsibilities on clients, on designers, and then on the principal contractors that is responsible for actually building the building. Yeah.
Now, what is the kind of due diligence that is done by construction companies on site, or at least should be done by construction companies on any project?
Well, the due diligence basically starts with the clients who will, at the conception of a project, they will appoint competent consultants. Usually the clients are just merely in a financial position to finance these projects, so they are required to appoint competent consultants who are then governed by the statutory bodies that's responsible for their profession. They will then guide the client into the various responsibilities that they have in specific situations. On the health and safety front, the construction regulations does require the client to appoint a health and safety agent, which carries a certain registration with the council, the South African Council for Project and Construction Management Professions, who will then be responsible to conduct a baseline risk assessment and compile a specification which is distributed to the designers, who are responsible to consider it when designing, and then to the principal contractors once they are appointed to construct the building. Once the construction starts, the responsibility kind of shifts to the principal contractor, with the role of the client becoming more oversight on the activities of the principal contractor, because the principal contractor becomes responsible for the site as an entity. They are required to conduct their activities responsibly. There is some guidance in the construction regulations on what the minimum requirements are, but the principle of conducting the activities responsibly is the primary concern. Having persons with the necessary competence, with the necessary tools, the necessary means to perform the activity which is delegated to them.
What happened in George is an absolute tragedy, and one that I've not been privy to in my lifetime, and certainly the worst construction tragedy to occur in George, and one of the worst nationally. But in your professional experience, how prevalent are such occurrences?
To this magnitude, not much. This is basically a once in a generation incident. The previous incident of this magnitude and of this loss of life was in Yaka Bridge, which was in the late 90s. On that incident, 14 people passed away. On a day-to-day on construction sites, you get small-scale collapses of these decks, but that's more during the actual pouring of the deck. To have a building collapse this far after the concrete was actually poured is very rare.
Now, there have been a lot of reports around the actual construction workers themselves, without bringing you into the labour issues, but the Minister, for instance, Thulas Nxesi, has indicated issues around companies using cheap labour, etc. We're not going to get into that. But my particular interest with regards to what I'm posing to you is, what is the criteria to be a construction worker in particular?
The construction industry is one of the biggest employers of unskilled labor in the country. It's a very low barrier of entry. There's always, because of the labor-intensive construction methods that we use in South Africa, there is always people necessary to bring and carry, to pick up here and take there, to mix concrete, to mix mortar. So there is a lot of opportunities for unskilled labor. Once you go into the artisan level, then obviously then there's competence requirements where they have to have completed national qualifications and those kind of things. But there is a lot of opportunity for unskilled labor in the construction sector.
Now, in the event of a tragedy such as the George building collapse tragedy, in your professional experience and with the little information that we have, how do you think we can prevent such a massive devastation from ever occurring again, just from a professional point of view?
It comes down to the principal contractor's approach to health and safety. The best performance are usually from the guys that, where the health and safety is so interwoven into their normal day-to-day operations that it becomes a way of how they do things instead of things that they do. So the implementation of health, an effective health and safety management system is probably the start of how to manage health and safety on the construction site. The guys usually complain of the amount of paperwork that the health and safety systems bring to them.
And now we know why.
But
it is such a tedious process.
It basically forces them to follow the necessary steps.
Now we know why. Now we see why it's such an arduous process to ensure that you are, abiding by the legislation.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then the next one is obviously training. Research has shown that even skills training in a trade, the more a person is trained, the better decisions they make in specific circumstances. Right. So it starts with health and safety management systems, and it goes through to the training that the guys, and the investment in training that the guys that's on site get.
And Gerhard, is there any recourse for family members, loved ones, or should there be at the very least?
There is definitely civil liabilities that is applicable in circumstances like this. Obviously, it will have to be vented through the processes of if there was, in fact, negligence. But there is civil liabilities in the sense of compensation, damages claims through the courts, and then obviously with the compensation for Occupational Diseases and Injuries Act, that there is compensation that's due to them through the workmen's compensation.
Well, Gerhard, at this point in time, with regards to the George building collapse, there are more questions than answers, but I thank you so much for coming through and at least educating us on some of the responsibilities, the roles, when it comes to the dispersion of roles within the construction business. So we appreciate your time. Thank you.
No worries. Very, very welcome.
Gerhard Potgieter is the branch manager for construction, dealing with health and safety compliance at Comprac Gauteng.